asked. But in Norway, as I shortly said as an introduction, and Gunhild is very sorry that she couldn't be here today, so therefore the video, but there were personal reasons for that. In Norway, we had the situation that the shame that one had been someone who had supported the occupants 75 years ago, who was Norwegians, who had supported the Germans who came to Norway, is so big that the third generation still feel ashamed. And they don't know where the shame comes from because nobody talks about it. It was so shameful that one had supported the occupants, the enemies. Maybe it was a young girl who had fallen in love with a German soldier. There were 500,000 German soldiers in Norway during the Second World War, and the country had just a population of 3 million. Every sixth person in Norway was a German. And that one may have fallen in love with a young man then was totally normal. That one worked for the Germans was totally normal. But afterwards, the punishment from Norway towards the Norwegians who had supported the German was so tough that until now the third generation, often even the third generation, is not able to talk about it. We had 21 informants in Norway, and as I said introductionally, we received the informants with an ad in the newspaper, and of the 21 informants, one is willing to be there with its name. All others want to be anonymous. We had 31 in the beginning. 10 people dismissed the project when they read the story black on white. They said, everything we have told you, everything you have written down, because we talked to people and then we wrote their story down, we summarized their story as short stories, gave it to them for reflections, and did we get it right? They read their stories, and then when I for the first time saw my own story on a piece of paper, it was so tough for me that I'm not able to continue in the new project, 75 years later. I want to give the floor to my colleague Gunhild. It's a 3-minute long video, or 3.5 minutes, and you get some impression of how our Norwegian exhibition was received in Norway. And before I show you the exhibition, I just want to say one more thing, and that is that when we started, I'm now a museum professional, we have a lot of hats on. We have a boss who is telling us, not you, Jon, but other bosses, make an exhibition where there are a lot of people coming. Make an exhibition where you reach out to people. Make an exhibition which is beautiful, which is nice, it has to look good, it has to be interesting for the public, and we do not know who the public is. We know we have school children, we know we have researchers, we know we have the general public, but in the end, a museum has to earn money in general, so it has to have good exhibitions. But so I have my, not you, Jon, but normally a boss who is telling me, get a lot of people to the museum, make a nice exhibition, and then I meet the informants, and the informant said, don't show my face, in Norway at least, don't use my voice, make a nice exhibition, but don't expose me too much, okay? I only share my story with you if you keep me anonymous. And I'm in the middle, have to use actors, I say I, but it's my colleagues and I in the Vest-Agder Museum all together, Gunhild, who was responsible for the exhibition, who is my closest colleague, saying, okay, how can I take the stories of the informants who want to be anonymous to make an interesting exhibition to people? How can I use very personal stories and make them generally interesting for people we don't know who they are? So you have to take feelings from people who really pour out their heart to you and should turn it into something making it interesting for a general public. This is really a challenge, really a challenge. And in my museum, at the Vest-Agder Museum, Jon has supported us in 15 years that we can work with the sensitive topics. Forget how much money we make, forget how many people come, take care of these informants who are here, take care of them first, and then a good exhibition will come out of it. And it does, but it takes a lot of considerations all the time. And we, my colleagues and I in this project as museum professionals, we started looking at the museum, what do we need, what kind of exhibition, how does it look like, how our texts have to look like, and we turned up being advocates for our informants. Because if you meet someone face to face, heart to heart, you really want to support them. And now, Gunhild, 3 minutes.
My name is Gunhild, and I'm representing the Norwegian project called Keep It Quiet, led by the Vest-Agder Museum. In our project, we are focusing on the long-term consequences of the German occupation during the Second World War. Between 1940 and 1945, 500,000 German troops were at some point posted to Nazi-occupied Norway, a country with a population of barely 3 million people. The Germans interacted with the local communities in various ways. They recruited political sympathizers and punished their opponents hard and brutally. They signed up Norwegians to build roads and military installations, fell in love with Norwegian girls, and got married. Nearly 80 years later, there are still many who struggle to come to terms with what happened during the war, even the generations who haven't experienced the war themselves. That's what the Vest-Agder Museum investigated in this project. We have talked to people from 3 generations. 21 of them have given us permission to tell their stories in our exhibition. Most of them wanted to be anonymous. Many of the informants tell about considerable challenges in their lives. There are stories about sorrow, shame, anger and loneliness, guilt, grief, isolation. Like our 94-year-old informant who fell in love with a German soldier. She got married, and they were transported to Germany after the war, got a son who was ill. Due to harsh living conditions in post-war Germany, she had to divorce her beloved husband and return to Norway to save her son. There she married a Norwegian and lived a lonely life, she says. In the village I was non-existent. I had nobody to talk to. Who could that be in the little village where everybody knew what I had done? I had this hatred inside me, that I was a good for nothing. But I have never been a German tramp. I was a Norwegian woman who fell in love with a German and he loved me. There is nothing wrong in that. Another example is the 70-year-old son of a Norwegian front fighter on the Eastern Front. He says, everybody could tell her what their fathers had done, but not me. Later the feelings of shame changed into restlessness and insecurity. Would anything new pop up? There are still things I will not talk about. I have a feeling that what I tell also reveals something about me. In our project, the concept of secrets versus openness has played an important role. Our informants tell about parents and surroundings that have kept valuable information secret, often as a result of the above-mentioned factors like sorrow, shame, anger, guilt and grief, feelings that could be transferred to the next generation in various ways. Not being told profound information of one's own life and background has had decisive consequences for the informants. It became difficult to mold one's own identity when pieces in the puzzle were missing.